Uganda's social barriers have been threatened at their seams by the continuous rise in DNA testing. Over the last few weeks, the controversial yet deeply disturbing debate on paternity tests for children has dominated the national conversation, with proponents arguing for a requirement for DNA at birth, while opponents debating for the protection of the family values. But what is government to do for this polarizing debate? Tonight on the spot is Minister Betty Amongi and renowned scientist and DNA expert Dr. Freddie Bwanga, who's also a senior lecturer at Makerere University in the College of Health Sciences. Honorable Betty Amongi, Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Thank you so much for having honored our invitation. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you, and good evening.
Dr. Freddie Bwanga, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Patrick.
Of course, the debate tonight is about DNA testing. And I want to start with the science and the technology and the expert. And I'm not going to assume that everybody understands what DNA testing is. So we're going to begin with the foundation. When you're talking about DNA testing, Dr. Bwanga, what are we talking about?
Thank you, Patrick. First, I would like to say what DNA is. DNA is the tape of life, meaning that every living thing has DNA. So that tape is acquired at the time of conception. So when we get when our mothers conceive us in the womb, what actually happens is one tape of DNA comes from the father and the other one from the mother. They come together and they form the new baby. But that new baby at that time is only one cell. One cell. So then that cell begins to divide into many cells. So the next cell will take a copy of the same tape of what? DNA. The next one also, until the whole body is formed up with so many cells for the head, for the eyes, for the legs, and so on, for in blood and what. And all of those cells actually have the same copy of the DNA tape acquired at conception from the father and
the mother. So that's DNA.
That's DNA.
So what is DNA testing?
Now, DNA testing is that procedure we do in the laboratory to find, I think the current perspective is in human identity, so we are going to limit ourselves a bit there. Is that procedure we do in the laboratory to find out if a certain person's DNA can be compared positively with another one. For example, a father and child, a mother and child, a brother to brother, a grandson to grandfather. So we want to know, is half of this child's DNA traceable in the father's DNA?
Biological relationship between individuals.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about.
Yes, that's for paternity. In case of a maternity test, is half of this child's DNA in the child's cells, is that DNA tape traceable in the mother? So when we find that half of a child's DNA is traceable in the father's DNA profile, then we confirm that that father is the biological father of this child.
Let me stretch it further. We are a human species. Isn't it also possible that Patrick Kamara here could have some kind of a DNA test at a lower percentage like that of Dr. Bwanga?
A lower percentage?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, there is nothing like that. A person, if someone is your father, your DNA, half of your DNA must resemble your father.
And the other half is for the mother.
Thank you very much.
All right. So you have been testing for quite some time. Why do we see an exponential rise or the surge for requirement for people to have DNA tests in Uganda? What explains that?
Actually, there are so many falsehoods that have come up in the recent 1 or 2 weeks about DNA tests. One of them is that one, that there's an exponential rise. The truth is that there is no exponential rise, but there is exponential awareness. So the other untrue thing is that families are breaking. That's not correct, as I'm going to clarify. So the truth is that the awareness, because of social media and what, is high, and people have dramatized it. DNA is always exciting for people to hear about. People have dramatized, people have put a lot of videos, a lot of unrelated things. When someone falls from a building, they say this is because of DNA. When something else happens, this is DNA. So there have been, I think the population has just gotten into a sudden excitement about it.
So are you telling
Yes.
the country
Yes.
and those who are watching tonight
Yes.
that there hasn't been an increase of people coming to seek for your services to test for DNA?
There has been an increase.
So why are you saying there hasn't been?
There has not been an exponential increase. Those two things
So
are
what
different.
explains an increase?
Awareness and availability of services and the probably affordable costs. So the issue of exponential would be probably be compared to, say, the way the COVID tests became exponential and many players came on board to actually meet the demand. That is not the case for DNA.
So we are talking about serious
Yes.
science, serious technology, perhaps
Yes.
even molecular biology.
Yes.
Do we have what it takes to be able to get both positive or negative tests about these individuals? Because if you do not have the capacity, and I'm asking this with a lot of respect, because you need both the technology and the skill together.
Yes.
Do we have this in Uganda to avoid giving wrong results that can ruin families?
The technology has slowly trickled in. Like as we speak today, there are 2 labs that can perform DNA testing in Uganda. I think the Government Analytical Lab and the MBN Lab. So the technology is not widely available, like say HIV testing is widely available. For DNA testing, the technology involved is quite complex, and so it has not been able to so far spread all around the way we see, say, HIV or malaria testing. But I would like you to allow me to talk about a few reasons why people do DNA testing.
Okay.
From we have been testing for DNA for the last 10 years, and there has not been this kind of excitement. So there must be something else that is causing this.
So what is it?
So one, which for the lack of a better word or phrase, we call it peace of mind DNA testing as the big reason, but there are subgroups there. One is when the father is doubting. And this comes up when, for example, you're at your home and a certain mother drops a child at your gate and says, this is your child. You don't remember any scenarios under which this could have happened, but that's it, it is there. So you say, well, I have the resources to look after this child, but probably let me confirm. The other under peace of mind, when the mother is not sure. Sometimes the mother is not sure who actually is the biological father of this child. So she will order for a DNA test. Sometimes the relatives are the one who's pushing the relatives. I think we all have relatives. They can actually push. We know that.
I know, but that's a very unfortunate thing why we
Yes.
even come into, okay?
Yes. The other one is when the mother suspects that the hospital has maybe swapped my baby for another one. And they put up a spirited defense. The ultrasound showed me 2 children, but you've given me 1. The other one, you have taken it to another person. The ultrasound showed me a boy. They told me I have a boy, but you have given me what? A girl. Now, I can tell you that most of those reasons are there in society. But fortunately for most of them, 60 to 70%, the alleged parent actually turns out as the what? The true biological parent. We are now talking from an informed source. We have the statistics. So we are not guessing what we are saying. 60 to 70%, the alleged father turns out as the biological father. For the other small percentage, the 30 or 40%, it's not the case. But those people, when you look at things in a wider perspective, you find that these are coming from relationships which have been there. They are not coming from families, as it has been alleged in the media or social media. There are relationships there where the mother became pregnant and there's a child in the picture, and now this child is threatened with lack of a father. So then the parents or the parent or the mother is trying to find who is the father. And then eventually, probably the father is found. So this child is salvaged from being fatherless. So that's the commonest scenario. For those who actually, the father who comes first is not the father, the mother is able to trace who else could be the what? The father. I think people are forgetting that when I'm not the father, there is another what? Biological father for this child. It's not only me who so
you know, you're brought in another dimension that has not been talked about. That even sometimes the mother are in doubt about who is actually the father of their children.
Sure, it is quite a common thing, so common. And actually what is settling this crisis there is that test. And you can imagine, you are the mother, the child is growing, and you don't know the father of that child. And then you know what the child is going to start asking tomorrow. My friends have their dads, but for me, mommy, where is my dad? It is a serious problem. So we bundle those, for the lack of a better phrase, we bundle those piece of what? Mind. I want to know. I'm the mother, I'm the father. I have resources to look after this child, but I want to know. After all, many of us, the fathers, will look after many other children who are not our own biological children. Now, what about this one they have said is probably my child?
Okay, if you can just pause there, because now I want to bring in Honorable Betty Amongi, Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development. You talked about the family. What I can see at the center of it is all is a family. And there seems to be a problem with the family. And the family is right in the docket of the Honorable Minister. But even before we got the family, what do you make of all these now that we've been seeing in social media about DNA tests, people going crazy about them? Because the Honorable Minister, this is a new docket. The doctor is talking about the peace of mind, to settle it, you know, a final closure about an issue, which I think is a good thing. What worries you about all this?
Thank you, viewers and Kamara. The family is the foundation of the state, and when we do not have a stable family or community, then the state cannot function properly. My ministry is in charge of social issue, and under us we have the religious groups, we have the cultural leaders, we have family, and all vulnerable groups. Now, the way the social structure of society is anchored over the last hundreds of years recognizes that family and children is not for an individual in the African context. It is communal, is for a family. The issue of a man or a woman having an affair with someone outside marriage is very well addressed in our societal structure. And our cultural institution understood that there would be understandable circumstances under which those could happen. For example, men used to go to war. And when they go to war and they have married a young girl, the family will make sure that the relative, a brother or a clan leader, a clan person, produces with the wife of that person, because they have gone
Which
to war.
culture are you talking about?
You studied your African culture. Me, I'm telling you the culture. The nomadic society, the nomads who move up and down historically, those cultures, if you study them, and some of them are still happening, when you marry a woman, people will also first, there are cultures that say either someone will have to test before.
Do you know you are on the verge of Sounding very controversial.
No, not controversial. I am telling you the truth, and sometimes truth has to be told, because we need to understand the social context upon which what we are terming as a family is anchored. Because society is run in Africa, first, by the culture, second, by religion, thirdly, law practices comes towards the periphery. And what the doctor is saying, if I were to ask him what percentage of people have asked for DNA in the last 10 years, you would find it doesn't even reach 1%. Why? Because society understands. And I agree with the doctor that this sensationalization is out of something else, which we are trying to find out.
So as the Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development, when a man sires children outside marriage, it is tolerated. But if a woman does the same, she's ostracized. So what will it take for the women in this era also to be tolerated, just like a man, if a child is born out of wedlock? Because that's a docket. You're talking about equality. You're talking about respect. You're talking about, you know, looking at man and woman at the same level. Because what you've just described in the African culture actually is talking about the male chauvinism, the patriarchal nature of Africa, where women is downtrodden, and it shouldn't be like that.
I've actually brought first the side of the women, that women would be encouraged to, even when they realize that a man cannot produce, they will look for someone, and that man will exit the family and go for safari. Well arranged by the clan. The clan even will call him and talk to him and tell him, you first go for a safari.
I'll bring a sharpshooter.
And then they would, good enough in among the clan, they will make sure they bring a clan member. That is how society has kept the structure of society going for the last decades. So, and when I see the sensationalization on blaming women, because you people started with the campaign Fear Women. Then from Fear Women, you came to DNA. When DNA that had been tested, if I counted, does not even reach 5. Those who came and were profiled, and the social media sensationalized it. So, and I ask a question, that for men, they bring children out of wedlock to the woman in marriage. If biologically men were to be getting pregnant, I'm telling you, we will not be having this debate, because the men would have had, I don't know if it were even possible for that pregnancy to be 4 months, or if you were
able to be on a production line like
yes. So, but really,
but
yes.
Actually, men are having children. I mean, not producing, but they're producing children outside wedlock,
yes,
outside marriage. And,
yes.
and the thing is, you as a minister for gender, and of course even culture is within
Yes,
there.
yes.
So why do we find that, and that has been the case, I have a child outside marriage, it can be tolerated. But if Betty gets a child outside marriage, then that is going to be a question.
No, you see, the reason why I'm actually not very bothered with this matter is because it is not a matter actually. It is a few people who have sensationalized a matter which is not an issue in a Ugandan society of now, because majority of the people in their family have coped where they have found a woman has given birth to children who are not theirs. They have even tested and discovered. There are those who will say, let it end in the lab. Don't destroy my family. I know, because we sit there, we have people coming to make complaints in our ministry, and we have realized that people have kept their families where either way they have discovered either a woman as one or two and the rest are theirs. Then vice versa. Women, of course, have for ages looked after the other one, but I can assure you that there are so many people who know that their wives have children, they have looked after them, they have embraced them, they have even left them a will as their own children, and they will detest. And polygamy, how would you really expect someone with 4 wives, that you have 4 wives and you walk there very confident that you have 20 children with 4 wives, you're going to walk very confident that they're all your children? The men know. But because of keeping the family together, they will continue.
It may not also be keeping the family together, because being a father is just beyond a simple biological excitement. It is more than that, isn't it, Dr. Bwanga?
Yes.
It is more than just the act.
Actually, I normally, in the counseling sessions we give to these people, we say that once a parent, you were a father for all of the children on earth. Mm. So this test is not done to remove you from this responsibility. This test is done to clarify on what you wanted to clarify on biological, paternity or maternity. But you are a father to this child.
But let me tell you, do you prepare the clients who come seeking for your services in terms of counseling, to give them enough counseling so that whatever results come out, if the result is negative, then they have the mental capacity to withstand whatever is going to come out, and their family is not ruined?
Yes, but I want to still remind everyone listening that actually the people who come for the test majorly are not coming from established families. Mm. And I really want to agree with the Honorable Betty that the majority of people coming to test are those where the child is hanging in what? In space. In fact, we have done a lot of work for the Minister of Gender.
Man friend, girlfriend,
yes, exactly.
Man friend, woman friend kind of relationship.
The child's belonging is in under what? Under contestation and under threat. So then they say, instead of, fighting, waiting to go to be arrested by police for child what? Negligence. Waiting, let me first do this in a calm way, quiet way, and I know the truth, and then I can act on that what? Truth. Mm. But actually, very few people are coming from established families. That's why we said that the claim that DNA testing is breaking families is false. Mm. Is what?
Okay. I woke up today reading a newspaper headline that government would want to regulate the DNA testing labs and stuff like that. If that is true, would you want to do? What exactly do you want to do?
No, I think the discussion has been, do you just wake up and go for a DNA? Under what circumstances should DNA be permissible? And because also we have a responsibility to protect the state, and the state starts with a family. And we do not want to encourage circumstances where people just wake up and go on rampage. So what has been proposed is that the Director of Medical Services should come up with guidelines and regulate, first of all, the labs, because the integrity of the laboratory is very important. Very good. So you can go to a laboratory that does not have all the ingredients, everything that is required for it to do a DNA, and you come with a false DNA. I saw one lady writing recently that for them they did a DNA here in Uganda because they wanted the child to go to Canada to study. It came negative. They went to Nairobi and it came positive. When the child reached again in Canada, they went, both of them did it in Canada, and it was again positive and okay. So the integrity of laboratory is very important. In most countries, the regulation is that either it is ordered by a police or a family court where all the issues raised by the doctor is in contestation to avoid people just walking in and walking out. The other issue is that we also are now having a lot of people who get sperm and eggs from others, those who are infertile, and they have purchased their eggs and they want to be sure. That one also has to be regulated. We have those who have children through surrogacy. So the regulation should be a little bit more broad on who orders for it, and such that you don't go stealthily, and now we encourage people just going stealthily. Make it, if it is going to determine that this child is yours or you've given birth out of wedlock, because I have, for example, I have a friend who has about 11 women they have produced with, but he had 3 official wives. So he made the first wife to be in charge of the record of his children. And every time he would sire a child out of marriage, it was agreed between him and the wives, the 3 wives, that they would go for DNA tests. And then, now imagine how if women were to really be also sensationalizing those, how would this society be?
But why would the government want to regulate, especially that element, like Dr. Bwanga is saying, where somebody just wants that peace of mind? You know, in a free society, there is a lab. What you need to do is make sure the lab has what it requires. Then individuals can go to those labs so long as the labs have the right people and the right technology.
But part of the regulation is that they must specify the integrity of the lab. The specification or guidelines might not even include the fact that you go with reasons. I gave an example that other countries will provide for DNA upon presentation of a court order from police, from maybe clan leaders, or from family court. But this particular regulation, there will be consultation so that we are very clear that, because I'm also told there's someone actually who posted on social media and is one of the the person in entertainment industry. He posted that he tested and the children are not his, only this number is his. But apparently what I've been told is that he was joking. It is not true.
Exactly.
How can you joke on your children?
Yes.
That is actually...
There are people who want to build their profile in social media.
I belong to that group of men who wouldn't want to use Dr. Bwanga's services. And with all respect, I'd rather, if the children are there, they are mine. I'm not going to come to your lab to test them. I just have to... Because one of the things is that because I'm dealing with somebody whom I know and committed to me, and I'm thinking I value that integrity and have no doubt in my mind. If there is anything, then they are my children. But
so, let me come in straight there after Honorable's mention of the orders from police and so on. Now, the second big reason why DNA is done is actually order from the government leadership and legal structures or law enforcement structures. And this can be from the LOC1 chairperson, from the LOC3, from the LOC5, from the probation office in the district, from the family and child protection police, from the family courts, from the administrator general, from courts of all kinds. Now, why is this done? Imagine you are the parent, you have a daughter, and a certain man, or younger or old man in the village there or near you, impregnates your daughter, but totally denies responsibility. And this is your daughter. I'm not talking about a friend. How do you solve this minus a DNA test? How?
But also even a DNA test,
look at
even proving paternity does not even mean that young man or whoever it is going to take up the responsibility. Today, today, Honorable Minister, if you saw 10 women who are young, maybe in their 20s and have children, perhaps maybe 8 are single mothers. and perhaps even the men are not even in the lives of their children at all.
Yes.
That's where we have reached, Honorable Minister.
Yeah, that's not a problem because that's a choice.
Yes.
That's a choice.
No, that shows you where the family of Uganda is unstable, and an unstable family is an unstable state.
Yeah, it could be that, many men these days are running away from responsibility, but like I said, in the social structure, even when you're a single mother and somebody gives birth with you, that child, the clan will be the clan where the lady comes from. So that when the child wants to get married, there are clan leaders there to escort them, to support them. So that is the kind of social structure that has supported the family, and it's been there for a long time. And surely for men out there, this is not, like I said, it's not new. Even Jesus in the Bible, Joseph was just a legal father to Jesus who raised him, but not the biological father. So if the Bible of hundreds of years ago has taught us this, then let us, but for me what is important for me is that from our data and statistics as a ministry, we have about 43% of families that are blended. And blended means sometimes the wife has come with the child, and the man has come with the child, or they started a family and the man has brought in the others. But even families go beyond that. So many of you raise children of your siblings, children of who. So if you can raise children, people even go to adopt, then what is this? So I want the public out there to know there's no crisis. Things are normal. Let us embrace the fact that our family values are important. Let us continue to sensitize the population to value morality, and as much as possible, be in a family, support the family. If by mistake something happens, you cope with it within the family structure, and do not forget that historically there has been example.
So, Mr. Bwanga, Dr. Bwanga,
yes.
Tell me, because in your business, I just want to describe for us, if you can, the moment when somebody who comes with that seeking as a peace of mind, and you have done your tests, and the results are in your hands, and you're looking at him and say, Mr. Levega, you are not the father. What kind of emotions have you been able to see when you say you are not the father?
You know, DNA is full of what one might call escapades, and the reactions that come up are of all types. Sometimes the father is happy that is not the father of that child. Sometimes the father is not is sad that is not the, I think you've seen the Mukono business, the Mukono. Sometimes, I mean, you can never predict how the father is going to react. Neither can you predict how the mother
because there's somebody who comes and wants to know to have some kind of good riddance.
Yes.
And there's somebody who's praying so hard, this should go my way.
Neither will you ever predict always how the mother will react. Because sometimes the mother has come with that man, but this man is not actually her husband. This man is a former boyfriend, but who now the mother thinks maybe could be the mother is already in another marriage, settled. But then this man every evening when he's drunk is passing near the gate and saying, let the rich people inside that gate raise for us our children. And imagine if you are the mother inside there, you are on your knees that your husband doesn't hear. Then probably tomorrow after a while you'll say, okay, that man, let me just talk to him quietly, and we go and do a DNA. In case God helps me and this man is not the father, then at least he'll rest his mind. And that's why the best word to use here was peace of what? Mind.
Peace of mind.
But you know, where I come from, they say
yes,
you can only know your true father when your mother has passed on.
Not anymore.
Because,
not
yeah, you know
yes,
what I mean?
yes, yes.
That you can only know who your father is after your mother has passed on.
Yes.
Because the mother has the capacity to say, Dr. Bwanga, by the way, the man you call your father is not your father. And you cannot say no, because you were not there.
Yeah. So that is probably true, but not 100% correct. Because from our 10-year experience, we have seen all sorts of outcomes. And in the other example
I'm trying to tell the viewer that
yes.
if you still have your mother,
You'll be on the...
you have to be on the on
No,
the
but
age.
I think
because
also
if you still have your mother, how are you sure she couldn't change the story tomorrow and tell you, by the way, that's not your father?
The one consistent thing we have observed is that when a mother gives birth to a child, the priority of the mother is to see the child succeed in life. That's the priority.
You know,
and so if Patrick is able to play this role...
I'm borrowing from our culture.
Yes.
Yes. It is the mother who can say who the father of the child is. In fact, the women have a lot of say in this. Before even they come to the DNA, in most cases they know. They have an idea. They have an idea. Yes. And you as a man, even if you're grown as a man, however much old your mother is, at one point you could actually even change her story. What would you do?
So I think that's the most important aspect why historically, culturally, people would rather not go into questioning. So long as the mother and the father are together and you, the family, the children, society continues to and you know, previously actually there were not much because people would be confined around a community. And most of the community confinement would be the clan. So even if something happens, people will not worry because a child is a child for the clan, not for you and your wife. So that one has played a very important role in keeping our society and family together. Of course, now you find you have come to Kampala and life is hard financially, maybe paying school fees, and you have a disagreement and the man will say, no, I will have. But I think the research and what we majorly get people reporting in our Ministry of Gender is not majorly people who are settled and they are happy. It is when there's disagreement. And sometimes when women feel that men are bringing children from outside, then they insist that let's do a DNA test before I accept the children. That is that one is common. We've not had so much commonality on men who are in a family and they are okay, who come to lodge a complaint. The other are like housemaids or workers who the wife might want to confirm, or themselves they have been working, the man has impregnated them and denied. Those ones we've also seen reporting. So what I've seen is that where people are asking for DNA is where people have disagreement, yes, one way or another. Yes. Rape cases where somebody rapes and then you go to court and then the person says it's not true. And so the police will say, okay, let's wait when the person delivers and then we do a DNA. So those are circumstances that has driven people to DNA. But otherwise, many people out there would not even bother wanting to know.
Actually, right there, that's why even our observations are clear that people who are in families, established families, are not necessarily coming for DNA testing. So this whole thing that has been hyped that DNA is destroying what? Families, is not correct. The correct thing is that those who are coming, the children are in what? In balance. Those are the ones. And many scenarios can happen. Like we talked about a daughter, but also there's a son. You're a parent, you have your son, a teenager, then the teenager is, police is outside coming for the son that is the father of the other child, defiled or raped or whatever it is. And then just imagine that this is your teenage son in secondary school. Really, if a DNA test is not done, your son is in jeopardy. You'll go for
because for such cases,
yes,
there's long jail sentence.
Yes, long jail and long remand. And you know, in fact, on that note, I would like to applaud the Child and Family Protection Police and the other leadership structures of government. They have really hoped much to solve these issues before. There are many accusations and counter-accusations sometimes. Sometimes even big people like big politicians, church leaders, whatever, have been accused of producing children. And
sometimes when they want to malign your name.
Exactly, thank you very much. I think there is even a current situation, we read it in the papers, I think in Luwero. We don't know now what is going on.
What's the truth? Yeah, there's somebody who has been denied to take up a pastoral
the
role because they think he produced children.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, that case is not going to be solved until there is a result, a credible result on the what? DNA result on the table. Talk about immigration. A parent is in the US, in Kubacheyo, wants to take his or her children, and then some of those are not true parents, but child what? Traffickers. They come here, and now, if there was no DNA test, because the embassies are always asking for DNA result before they can claim parenthood of those children. If that wasn't there, another bigger crime, which is called child what? Trafficking, crops up. Look at these children in homes
for adoption.
Many people go there to claim that those children are theirs biologically. And actually, when those lawyers of those places or the owners of the babies' homes come for the test, they actually, in many cases, we find that the parent who emerged there is actually not the biological parent. So what would be the fate of that child if there was no credible DNA result? So talk about DNA profiling. This is the profiling means that any man can walk in and have their DNA profiled. You know, when women die, it is very common for mothers to emerge with what? With children. And when they emerge...
When a man dies?
Yes. I think we've seen this across the board. A mother emerges, or two mothers with 2 or 3 children, one child, and puts a big claim, this child was also for the late, or these children were for the late. So,
if a man has left his DNA profile...
Thank you. And he has put it on his will or kept it with his wife or his friends or whatever, family lawyers, whatever. The lab also keeps a copy consistently. It will be easy for the newcomers or newcomer to be tested and compared with
the available profile.
If those children are not confirmed to be for this man, if the widow rejects them, and supposing they are actually for the late, they are in balance. They have no belonging. If they were not for him, both things are happening. It's possible that those children are not for the late. But who is going to suffer? It is the widow. It's the widow.
Okay. Dr. Bwanga and Honorable Betty Amongi, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to dig deep and see. But I just want now to look into the family itself, because I think there's a problem in the Ugandan family, and that's right in your docket, Honorable Minister. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests tonight are Honorable Betty Amongi, Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, and Dr. Freddie Bwanga, I now have your comments and your questions because we have reached that moment when you have to have your say. Let me go to the questions or comments coming in. The peace of mind that Doctor just talked about helps the family to reduce domestic violence. Instead of men hearing it as rumors and start carrying pangas for children and wives, DNA tests address it all and also help the children from being fatherless and cavemen who want to run away from their responsibilities. This is Rubin from Tororo. Thank you so much, Rubin. Let me pick a couple more so that my guests will be able to respond at once. Hello, good evening. I'm Obedigu from Kireka. My question to Doctor, what comes to your mind? Okay, let me go. What comes to your mind when a woman comes to conduct a paternity test for her children? I think she has already cheated, just wants clarity. And to Madam Minister, if Jesus had another person as the biological father, isn't that going to be an excuse for every woman around? I'm Obediu from Kireka. Well, I think that is bordering to very controversial area of matters of faith. And matters of faith and matters of culture, we have to be very careful here. Hello, Patrick. Thank you for the show. The Honorable Minister should understand that men have the right to know who their children are. Any regulation that seeks to allow misrepresentation of child's identity is wrong. Let's not protect infidelity. I'm purely disappointed in those who feel that men should just take care of whichever Tom and Dick they find. This is Kananura Emmanuel from Makerere. Thank you, Emmanuel. Hello, this is Kevin from Busia. Just thank you for the program. And let me just, Okello Patrick Bwanga from Busega. DNA is the talk of the nation in the recent days. Men are doing DNA testing because the current economic situation is really pushing hard. Therefore, they want to be sure before investing heavily in education. It can be disappointing seeing someone coming to claim the child, yet he was absent during a child's life. Let the government supervise and do the accreditation before it's operational. I suggest that if I take care of a child for over 10 years, no other man should claim the child. That's Okello Patrick Bwanga. Thank you so much, Okello Patrick. Let me have the Minister and Dr. Freddie. My producer is saying maybe I can pick a couple of questions here before you can respond. Good evening. I like the debate, though I have a question. Now, I have agreed with my husband to have a child. But since he has some health problem and can't get me pregnant, we agreed to get the child outside. Unfortunately, he passed on. Now the clans want to do DNA. What can we do for such a problem? Good evening. I think the debate, I think that's the question we had. All right, Honorable Minister and Dr. Bwanga, if you can respond to the different issues you've had from the viewers listening tonight.
Thank you. First, let me thank the viewers because I think the issues that they have raised indicates that we are within and we all agree on most of the issues that we've articulated, and the society also agrees most of the comments. Two of which are stating that men want to run away from responsibility, and sometimes DNA is done to make sure that men do not run away from responsibility, and that's true. The statistics we have in the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development indicates that because we partner with the Police Family Protection Unit under the Justice, Law and Order sector, and if you go to that department, most of the DNA ordered there is arising out of complaint of child neglect. So that is one issue which also resonates with what someone said, that the economic stress is also pushing men. But also I think the cost of doing DNA alone is not feasible for many men out there. That's why for me, I've maintained that this has remained a matter which is majorly when you want to contest, when there's contestation, when there's a challenge in the family. Because people who are economically incapable would not look at DNA as #1 priority. They are looking for food, they are looking for shelter, they are looking for other things in a family. Jesus, like I stated, I wanted to give an example because that's a fact in the Bible. That yes, Jesus Joseph was not the father of Jesus, but remained the legal parent, the legal father who raised Jesus. And most of the parents and the men out there want to really thank the men, that so many of you out there have taken on the role of being fathers to children who are not yours, children who are for your siblings and others. We are not going to unearth what is in the Bible or theorize it. We are told in the Bible that it was the Holy Spirit. Of course, logically, philosophically, that one we are not going to go into it. The issue of men having a right, yes, it is important that someone who is unsatisfied, who is contesting the legitimacy of their child, has the right to know. We don't disagree. That's why for me, I have stated that what we need to do is to regulate. We need to ensure that we profile the laboratory, and the laboratory should have credibility, and the test is authentic. Otherwise, the test, you can go for the test and it is not authentic, and you dismantle your family for nothing. And the last, I think, for me, is that someone said you got a child because the father was infertile, but you did not disclose. And let me also say that majority of those who seek fertility treatment and get children from the eggs or the sperm of another person do not want to disclose. There are those who get children and it's by a surrogate. They don't want to disclose. I think after the man has died, it is important for you to disclose, because where you've got treatment is known. They keep the file. For your sake, you need to disclose, especially if the eggs was the eggs for your husband. I would advise you that you get a very trusted person in the clan, in the family of the man, and you go to that fertility center and be able to open up and let the hospital be the one to disclose and confirm, so that you don't deny that child the family and the clan that they belong to.
If you could also maybe add on that issue where somebody, I think they got a mercenary to do the job. The man could not make the woman pregnant, and they got somebody and who helped, and after that the man died, and now the clan is saying, you know what, this is not our child. That woman must be in big trouble.
Yes. And that's what we mentioned, that sometimes relatives can actually make the life of this woman very hard in that family setting. And that's a classic example of where such a thing could arise. But if the lady, if the mother knows that they agreed with the husband, I think, Honorable said, the family actually is supposed to sit and address such issues within the family without really victimizing the mother of the child. But our relatives, we all have them.
What do you make of some of these responses from Ugandans tonight? Who?
Well, the responses I saw, I think people are saying, let them allow us to do the DNA. I think these are all being driven by the tough economic times and so on. But I think, in my view, if there is no reason for a family to go for DNA, then there should be no DNA done. We should do it to clarify on situations where there is, especially when the child's condition is at stake. That's where probably it is most useful. But not to go there and say, I'm tired of this wife. If I find any evidence, I'm going to do a DNA, and if I find anything, then I call it quits. That wouldn't be a problem.
Somebody comes looking for a smoking gun. Yes,
something like that. That wouldn't be a very logical reason to do a DNA test. And on the issue of regulation, that's very important. In fact, the Minister of Health needs to come out properly and informs the public the way they did for COVID. Mm. It was very nice. The public was informed where to go for tests. And that is that was a great thing. If it could be done for DNA as well, then it would really be nice. Yes.
I want to stretch this further because I've seen now, and I'm sure it's going to come to Uganda.
Yes.
Now that DNA has become what is the genome, testing.
Yes.
It has now become a big thing in America and Europe.
Yes.
Everybody wants to know where do we come from, and then you find somebody that you have relatives in Tanzania, maybe in Congo or in Ethiopia or in Kenya and stuff like that. I've actually even seen whites where they find them when they are looking for their genome, and they find them maybe it is telling them you have 5% Ghanaian and whatever, 7% Polynesia. If you could explain that, because I'm sure it's coming to Uganda very soon.
Yeah, so DNA testing, there's a specialization called genealogy where we trace for the origins of people based on their DNA profiles. So there are certain things that are used within the DNA molecule which remain constant for like people who came from Africa, people who came from Asia. They persist within the genome. Needless to say, the bits in DNA that we test do not code for anything. So they don't determine our eye colors or our size of the nose or ears. No, we call them silent genes or non-encoding genes. So they remain stable for generations. So they can be used to trace someone where they came from. And so because those particular sequences within the DNA will have a particular frequency within a certain population, which is therefore used to know that, oh, Patrick is here, but I think he's more related to someone in what? In Ghana, by origin. So, but that one has not yet arrived here so much, but it will come one day.
Because when you look now in America, people are doing those like birthday presents.
Yes.
That like your birthday present, they tell you, what, by the way, you are so and so, but you're half Tanzanian or Southern African. They normally don't say countries. You're half Southern African. You are quarter North African.
Yes.
You are Ethiopian.
Yes.
But there's a way how you can see the African people are so combined. They are so interrelated.
Yes.
That one Ugandan here, if you do that genealogy test, you'll find that you have genes of West Africa, you have genes of Southern Africa, you have genes of the Horn of Africa to make a complete person.
Actually, that kind of test is done by race, tracing the races of people. And those things we are talking about, their frequency in the population are normally similar within a particular race. And actually we use them in the laboratories for scientific calculation. Like the scientific calculation is even we use for the ordinary paternity is based on the profile or the frequency of certain things in that particular population. If a white man fathered a child with a Ugandan girl, for example, the calculation of the things we do scientifically in the lab will use the Caucasian population statistics. So those things remain fairly the same by race. So if we say Africa, we are talking about the African race or the black race. So even if you live in America for 20 years, you are still genetically from Africa or from Asia or from Latin America and so on and so forth, or from the Caucasian population. So those are the ones we use. Yeah,
but even in Africa, they can still say Africa, North Africa, or Africa, Southern Africa, or Africa, Congo, or Africa, Ghana, or Africa, something like that.
So they are related to the migration patterns that were there before. Like you hear the Bantu migrated from Congo to Uganda, to East Africa, then to Southern Africa, and so on. So when the genealogy is done for those people, there's something which tells the same value or a similar value in that population compared to someone from North Africa.
Okay, some people have talked about the human genome as the book of life.
Yes.
What does that exactly mean?
The human genome is just actually the DNA, the total DNA of a person is what we call the human genome, which has so many, I think I don't need to go into a lot of science.
That's molecular biology.
Yes, molecular biology. Yes. But the human genome is just the total DNA of that person. The one which one inherited at birth, at conception, that's the genome. And it has all the genes that are responsible for making us who we are, and which changes occur in our lives. Like when you are going to become a teenager, certain genes switch on. during the puberty stage, and certain changes will happen. Those genes have been there, but they have been silent.
But I'm told now you scientists have the capacity to do gene editing.
Yeah, gene editing is done, and it can
remove some traits and put some others.
And put some others. That technology is coming up, especially for curing certain diseases, which are motivated by what we call mutations in the genome. It's
not only curing diseases. Some people want to use it for having designer babies.
Sure.
Babies that will look in a certain way. But anyway, let's come back home. Honorable Minister.
So there was a question I didn't answer.
Yes, sir.
That a woman asking for DNA has cheated. She just wants clarity. Well, this is not an absolute fact. Probably this woman came to into your life when she was already pregnant. So she has nothing to do with cheating on you. She just found herself coming to your house when she was pregnant. So I think in this whole thing we should avoid this stone throwing at each other. We should really be more mature and realistic to ourselves.
Yeah, what I've seen, Honorable Minister, that as men we seem to be very unselfish in this whole thing of looking for paternity, you know, results, because the society will tolerate us if a man meanders and gets a child, but society will not tolerate a woman if the same happens.
And that is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate reality.
It's unfortunate that the society, the rules that define society was coined by men. Most of the rules that govern society, women did not participate, because culturally women would be cooking while men are defining what are the rules
on the table
society.
of men.
And so the interest of men were the one that were considered in defining the rules that govern society. That's why within the legislative policy we say there are norms and values, and Article 31, Article 32 and 33 of the Constitution recognized that and stated clearly that values, culture, religion that subjugate women are illegal and null and void in the Constitution. So as per the law, the laws have addressed it. However, for us in the context of the ministry, we know that these are things that you cannot achieve in 2, 3, 10 years. We have to first of all address the root cause of education, of awareness, of sensitization, of making sure that a lot of engagement is undertaken. But I really want again to reinstate that let us look at the root cause in our families, because there is no generalized reason why people go for DNA. Sometimes someone is revenging and they go out. They said, okay, if you have also had the children out of wedlock, I will keep quiet. But the person says, okay, let me also go for Panadol. So, and Sengas, by the way, they teach women about Panadol. So, but
are you sure that is coming from Sengas?
Yes.
Please don't misrepresent.
No, Sengas will teach you, and these are real things. Now, men, for you, if you see, for you men, when you are wedding, you go for bachelor's party, and they bring for you the women whom you've been with to say goodbye and all those. But for us, we go for Senga, and Senga will say, please do not leave your home because a man has produced. If a man produce and bring you a child or children, look after. If you are so annoyed, also keep your marriage, but you can get Panadol.
Okay.
You are laughing.
Yeah.
But now I'm telling you the secrets of society.
I'm laughing for the minutes of gender.
I think women are one of the...
do you know how many women are going to look for Panadol now?
No.
You know what I've just caused?
No. Those are Senga's words. I'm sure not many women look for Panadol.
But anyway, there's a problem in Ugandan homes there's a problem with our families. In fact, I understand the Minister of Gender, you have actually come out with something called parenting guidelines.
Yes.
By the time a ministry even thinks of giving guidelines for parenting, then you have accepted that there's a problem and the problem is big. Now the Ministry of Uganda, you are going to be teaching Ugandan parents to raise their children. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is.
And by the way, majority of the neglect of children is on the side of men. You just walk tomorrow, you walk to a market like a Owino market, you walk on the streets of Kampala, you will find women are the one fending for you. Just go to your village and find how many, even for men who are married with women, they are living together. In most of those, you see women at the roadside selling tomatoes, onions. They are the ones paying school fees for those.
Why do you think are the men absent in the lives of their children?
Really, men should be able to answer for us, because as a minister, I have tried to find out why, and I have failed to understand why most men of recent, because the men of those days took great care of their children. But these days, the empowerment that we've brought, there are even men in Makerere who will come to look for women, corporate women, women who are working, to look after them. I don't need to give you examples, there are very many.
Please don't.
Yes.
I don't want to have a litigation on this show when you're talking about them. It's very common, Dr. Freddie Bwanga, that we seem as men to be scared of responsibilities, because there are very many single mothers today fending for themselves, fighting for their children, and if you have, children, boys who are being raised by bitter mothers, what generation are we going to have? Because this single mother who's raising them, she's not happy. You had a bitter woman raising a young man. What's going to happen 20 years from now?
It's actually a worrying trend, because in any case, sometimes when you trace the father of this child, you find that actually that father also had no father. The current father of this child who is abandoned with the mother actually also had no father in
their life. Yeah,
it is I don't know, it's quite rare that a child grows up in a proper family and then later abandons his own children. It's quite rare, but the trend of absent fathers is on the rise.
What can you do for it, Honorable Minister? Because that is right in your docket.
Yeah, that's why for us we said we need to continue with the engagement, but also the education. We need to have education more, so that of course the tough economic times is related to jobs, because in urban areas, it's not like when you're in the village, you have land, you can tilt, you can get your coffee, you can sell, you all go to the garden, you have food to eat. When you are in a setting of an urban area, you now need to rent, you need to, and so if it becomes overwhelming for a man who has looked for a job for a long time, they have failed, sometimes you are not going to also blame that man. So we need to address the root cause and look at how do we make everybody, as much as possible, have a source of income. And once they have, research has shown that when people have source of income, they will look after their family. So I think that is the now reality of the urban life, the economic situation, where you do not have land, you do not have a way of living, and money is the only facilitator of life. And you find yourself, you are a person, you have to rent, pay fees, go take the children for health care, and the amount of money you earn, like when I see most of these workers who get 7,000 a day, that's why you find these days people are marrying after 35 years, 40 years, people are postponing giving birth, because they are looking at a figure of 300,000 a month, and you say, I have to rent. If I have a child, what will happen? So it's a combination of a lot of issues.
I want to thank you so much, and we've come to the end of our show, but let me ask you, Dr. Bwanga, to give us your concluding remark, and then the Honourable Minister.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrick. I think the question that has emerged mostly in social media again has been on the accuracy of the DNA results. In laboratories that have proper systems and they are internationally accredited, the results are reliable. Those laboratories have systems for back and forth cross-checking of results. And actually, like an MBN lab, if we find that a certain father is not matching the child, that sample is retested with an independent test. So when the two speak the same language, then the report is prepared. So people have been worried, they have been in social media.
So do you actually conclude the testing here? Because I understand sometimes samples are taken in South Africa.
Well, there are two, I know of two testing labs in Uganda, the Government Analytical Lab and the MBN Lab. The others, I don't know, but I think they collect samples and send somewhere. Others send to MBN or to the Government Lab. But there are not many labs doing DNA testing in Uganda. I'm aware of those two for now.
Okay.
And these results are accurate when we find that the alleged father is the father, actually, the biological father. The accuracy is 99.99. And if we find that the alleged father is not, it is 100%. People should not be worried about quality as long as they have done the test in an accredited facility. So that comment, that post we saw from Mchala Mukasa, which has been circulating that the results were false in Uganda, and then she went to Canada and Kenya. I think that story sounds fabricated because she has not revealed which lab she tested from. Let her reveal, and then we know. And they are. I mean, Uganda, we have laws. If she thinks she was fleeced, let her go to court. So that particular, and that is the challenge with social media. People just bring in things and throw them at us. And then if you don't filter that information well, you think it is what? Correct.
But the price tag of doing a DNA is actually quite high.
It's not that high. Right now, what per sample is only $285,000. That's not too much money. It's less than $100.
Okay, I think also it has been misrepresented. People are talking of $700.
And lastly, there is this other DNA test where if a boy, which compares male, which relates males through the Y chromosome, which people need to know about. So the grandfather, the son, and the grandson, they all share the same Y chromosome. Meaning that if any of these people is alive, if a son is brought to a family and the father died, the alleged father died, that son can be compared with the grandfather or the paternal uncle, or the son is...
But the person who died could be the one who maybe is not linked to the alleged grandfather.
Yeah, this yeah, it is possible, but
because I mean, the people,
the test is not only the test itself. There is also history which is taken, and the person presenting that history will tell the story. Okay, so and so was the father of so and so, son of so and so. There is a story, and if there is doubt, we can put two reference people, like we can put a paternal uncle and a grandfather as reference people. So in that way, we mitigate those problems. Anyway, as I said, the laboratories which are internationally accredited, they have all the systems to ensure that the result which is issued is accurate. Okay. That's what listeners need to know, and they should pick confidence and test in Uganda. There's really no need to.
But do you agree also that a man who comes to your lab looking to do a paternity test, he himself could also be an outsider in the family he claims to be coming from?
Yes, it is possible. And as I said, if there is some doubt, what we call reference person is in the test. So if me and you are brothers, and another boy is brought to this family of ours, we, depending on the surrounding history and circumstances, we will interpret, and it's possible to use two reference people to ensure that the other child is not denied a family or a male lineage. So there are all systems in place to ensure that that particular person, that particular child whose whatever family belonging is at jeopardy, is protected.
All right. Thank you so much. Honorable Minister, your concluding remark.
My concluding remark is to request the people out there that please do not use social media to misrepresent facts. There are already investigation we've done and concluded that some of the stories going on in social media are inaccurate, and really it is important that in a sensitive matter like this, we come out when we are 100% sure of the information we are giving to the public. Two, what is going on does not reflect any crisis in the country. Yes. There is no need to worry. We recognize that it is important for someone to do DNA in circumstances that it is required, but also as government that it is important that it is regulated, and I'm glad that the Director of Health Services has convened the relevant stakeholders to come together to find out how to regulate and issue guidelines within which you are able to know when it is necessary to know and when you require to know, and when also other institutions like police, like courts would want those for evidence, for prosecution, or for also absolving someone who has been accused.
Honorable Minister, thank you so much for the time and for having labor to really explain some of these issues. Dr. Freddie Bwanga, thank you so much for your work and also for your lab technology that is helping Ugandans have peace of mind. And for those of you Ugandans who are watching tonight, I think we should let also think about the right of your child, you know, because they are innocent in all this. You have a wife and you're a husband, you have your own contestation. Think about the children, because they are not into this. They are very innocent people. You know, we never choose our parents. You never chose your dad, you never chose your mom, you actually even never chose your siblings. The people we choose are the people we marry. Our spouses we chose. Our mothers and our fathers, we never chose them. Can you imagine? So perhaps if we can make sure and understand that raising a child and being a father is just more than just a simple biological excitement. It takes a little more than that. You can be a parent of many, not necessarily even being a biological father. I belong to that group of people who will not go seeking for paternity tests. If the mother says they are my children, then they are, because they come from Toro where they say, it's the mother that declares who is the father of the child. Good night and God bless Uganda.